Welcome back to Beards and Brews. We are starting our Halloween Spooktacular, so if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe or follow no matter where you're listening. Not only does it help us out, but you'll know exactly when we have another one brewing. Fellas, spot number one to the Spooktacular this year is going to go to The Crow, specifically from 1994. So I have to ask you, who you going to call?
I don't think that works. We do have Ernie Hudson, though, so...
If you think about the majority of his roles, what do, Ernie Hudson? I stand around and smoke.
I don't want to say he tries his best in this movie, but he does play a really good, lawful good policeman. You know, he's getting dicked by his own precinct just for doing the right thing. But you know what? He sticks to his guns. I dig it.
Yeah, he kind of plays the same character that I feel that I've seen him in pretty much everything that he's been in. He's just like, you know, he's going along with the flow. He's getting things done, doing his job. Trying to just get by, you know?
He carries a lot of weight in this movie for it to be probably 7 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
he does.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
He is the connective tissue, though, even though the movie kind of meanders in and out, whether or not, like, he needs to be there.
Sure, yeah. But before we get started talking about this movie, can we talk about the, I guess, cultural weight that the movie The Crow had during the 90s? I really want to set the tone and let everybody, just, if you were there, great, this is a refresher, but if you weren't there, man, there were a whole lot of guys that really made The Crow their entire personality, wasn't there?
We've all seen those hot topic fellas. You know, everyone's got the trench coat, the long black hair, they've got the vampirism. They've got, I know he's not a vampire, but shit, man, like this spawned everything that is, was, and ever will be hot topic / gothy. Like, if you're into Rhea Ripley nowadays, you need to thank The Crow.
This is kind of what made, like, I'm not saying made goth mainstream, but this made a lot of the visual elements very appealing to a lot of mainstream male audiences. Despite there not being a whole lot of, like, there's not a whole lot of fan service in this movie at all, exactly one titty, but it really did a number on a lot of, like, the proto-goth community. Like, first of all, this has got a great soundtrack, really, like, a lot of that new metal stuff that you expect.
Right.
So that helped, too. But, man, this was big at the time. It kind of disappeared, though.
Kind of, but I think it just turned into something else. You can always point to, like, you know, like Sting from WCW. I mean, basically just, like, ripping the entire fucking look. But I think it just kind of transformed into something else because, like, it very much harkens to what the Matrix wound up looking like.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the aesthetic. It just went from, like, one thing to another.
Yeah, the same guys who were really into The Crow in 1996 became really into The Matrix in 1999 and then really into Fight Club in 2002. It's just a one-way road.
I feel targeted, Chandler. I feel targeted.
I mean, I'm right there with you. Despite, and this is on record for me, I think The Matrix fucking sucks. Aside from that, I'm right there with you.
You said the quiet part out loud.
We'll eventually do The Matrix. We'll get there. I need a rewatch, but that's a different movie for a different time. We're talking about The Crow.
And speaking of The Crow, where a guy gets killed and comes back with powers, but this time he doesn't have a weird clown with him.
He's kind of the weird clown himself because he wears a bunch of makeup, I guess.
It would have been better had he got burned up and we could have called him Quispy Jr.
Crispy.
Bad crispy, clown not like.
Well, I mean, that one dude, that guy running the pawn shop, whatever, he got a little quispy. He was actually one of my favorite characters in the movie because he was actually a hard ass. He seemed like a dude who, like, grew up in, like, Brooklyn or whatever, just taking no shit.
Yeah, like, I love that guy. He's always just showing up in stuff, and anytime he does, I don't know the actor's name, but he's just one of those sort of, like, fat, scummy, little, like, slimy little guys that runs a pawn shop.
He's the real world version of Donnie DeVito.
Yeah. I think I've seen that guy pop up as, like, just miscellaneous policeman in several other movies.
In this one, he is named Gideon, and I thought it worked very well. Just because it's like such a charismatic name for such an uncharismatic person.
Oh yeah, when you first said that, I didn't quite get it, but yeah, if you put it up on that dichotomy, I get it. Because yeah, Gideon is not a name that matches that fellow at all.
It kind of makes me wish they just named the Crow that he's just Gideon, and you're just like, wait a minute, That's not hard at all.
Yeah, no, his name is Eric Draven because of course it is. That's where we're at. Eric Draven.
Eric. Gross.
That's embarrassing.
I cannot even keep it together right now because of it, to be honest.
Don't you wish that your last name was a combination of dark and raven? Don't you wish you were Draven?
That, you know what? Now that you bring that up, that is a kind of a horseshit name. Like, what is that? It's like, turning Dracula into Dr. Acula. Like, all right, you got that far.
Dr. Acula don't bite. Dr. Acula scrape and lick.
See, I clean ya.
Oh,
But that does-
man.
But that does bring me to a point that I was going to bring up at some point. You know what infuriated me the most about this movie? There's a lot of things. I'm going to be the detractor on this, but you know what infuriated me? This movie is called The Crow, ladies and gentlemen. We see a bird every time he shows up.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bird is a fucking raven. His name is Draven. He quotes Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Crow is not mentioned anywhere in this fucking movie.
Edgar Allan Poe's estate was like, nuh-uh, no thanks.
Yeah, I figured it had to be something like that. This had to have been named The Raven initially, and then something happened.
Imagine getting like a copyright strike from a guy who's been dead for 200 fucking years.
You may use this intellectual property nevermore. It's okay, I hate myself too. Let's press on.
Now, what I will say is, for me, a huge positive and something that's always stuck with me are the villains of this film. Brandon Lee is fine, don't get me wrong. He's the star, he carries his weight, he does a great job. The villains are so much fun, and what makes them so unique along with the rest of the cast. I've watched tons of movies, we all have. People have voices, and then you have people that have fucking voices. Like, Arby's, we got the meats and the Allstate guy.
Why the fuck is that what you bring up?
Well, I mean, those things are pretty verbose. I'll put it out there.
I'll give it to you, okay.
All of these villains have one of those voices. Top dollar. He sounds like he's been chewing gravel. And then you got that one guy that's T-Bird. Hey, fire it up. And he's just like the scummiest little dude from the Warriors. And then you got Skank, and he's just talking out of the side of his mouth like he's jacked out of his skull, which is wonderful.
I'll tell you, I don't know who any of these people are by name, but I know there's like the real ugly guy. There's obviously Luther from the Warriors. I know him. And then we got Tony Todd.
And isn't that nuts? Just once again, the dichotomy of that, because you like have that crackhead guy who would just, he's doing his crackhead thing, if he wasn't there trying to like please his boss, he'd be outside of the Sev asking for change. Like, he's got it in the bag. And then Tony Todd just shows up and he just like whips out a shotgun from fucking nowhere. It's just cool.
Yeah, Tony Todd is, I'm not going to say it's my favorite part of the movie, but it was the most consistently good part. When Tony Todd was on screen, I knew that it was at least going to be decent.
He was mostly there to deliver very smooth jazz exposition.
Sure. Right in between the Stone Temple Pilots and 9 Inch Nails songs.
I mean, totally. I mean, that smooth jazz really rounds out the criminal underbelly, to be honest.
I mean, what do you got if you got a whole Jolly Pirate band with Jolly Pirate nicknames and no Captain Hook?
Wasn't the leader of the bad guys Raiden in Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
Oh, was he really?
I think so. I just recognized that voice. I just like, that's him, right? He just looks like John Romero, the guy who made Doom.
Oh, it definitely wasn't Christopher Lambert.
No, he's too busy in Ghost Rider too.
Truth.
Sure.
I remember this movie carrying so much weight for me that I recognized all these guys in films afterwards. And whenever I saw Top Dollar, the fella that we're talking about with the long black hair, whenever I saw him again in Alien Resurrection, I was so excited because I was like, oh man, I love that guy. And that movie blew.
Yeah. that might be our wild card pick.
For what it's worth, when we talk about him, I had him down as Big Bad Franco because you knew he was the big bad and he looked like a Franco, but not one of the famous ones.
Somehow surprisingly more racy.
Oh God.
No.
Incestuous Franco.
I I made no claims about that. He just looks like, like the Franco that wasn't quite pretty enough to make it to Hollywood. He made it to, like, off Hollywood.
Well, this Franco, if he is a Franco, is banging his sister. His father's daughter, yes.
Wait, they're banging?
They three-wayed that one chick to death and then smoked her eyeball.
Did I just...
Oh.
Did I miss that part? Did I just block that out? I don't remember that. I remember her just constantly being around, being like a cutie. I just thought they were friends.
It's discussed whenever Gideon is sitting at the table with Top Dollar right before he stabs him in the throat.
Okay. Well, hey, if you guys can skip over Tubby time, I can skip over whatever this mess was with the big bad Franco.
Let's start at the beginning. Like I had mentioned, the Crow character, Eric last name and such. He's seeing his girlfriend. They love each other a lot. They have their own place. He's a bit of a rock star in the town. And they're taking care of this kid who they've kind of like off the books, adopted, fine, whatever. They're great people. Movie, I get it. They're wonderful. I hope nothing happens to him.
Oh, did they get murdered?
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
Damn. Too bad that little girl didn't turn into Batman.
Holy shit. Could you imagine, fellas, if we just swapped out Brandon Lee and his love interest for Tommy Wiseau and his love interest and the little girl Sarah for that, what's his name? No. Johnny, Jimmy?
I can remember Me Underwear's guy, but I can't remember his name. Danny.
Yeah, it is.
Danny. Oh, hello, Danny. Could you imagine that? Just swap them out and just still run this movie?
He just comes home in the middle of it. You're tearing Lisa apart!
Literally, they're just tearing her apart.
Yeah.
They kill him and throw him out the window, and you see his ass real good as he falls.
He's still flexing as he's falling.
And somehow just like thrusting into a belly button.
Oh!
Yeah, so a gang of miscreants comes in, if that's the word for it, for whatever reason.
Nothing like a group of degenerates that live right down the road next to the flaming barrel.
Yep. And did we mention this is the night before their wedding? Devil's Night or something like that?
It's like the worst case scenario. Like if he was a cop, last day before retirement.
Oh, I'm too old for this shit.
Well, he don't have to worry because he'll never age again now that he has had his loved ones murdered in front of him and been cast out a window. All because they complained about tenants' rights.
That'll show him.
Was that like a thing? Was that the movie trying to like hint at something, but they didn't have enough footage because Brandon Lee died, so they made a 90-minute movie? I feel like there could have been more here, right? Like, I know, like, I bitch about movies being a little too long in the tooth. They have a lot they can cut out and still be a great movie. This movie needed more. This movie needed to be longer. There's, like, scenes that needed to kind of settle and maybe be a little bit more tense or maybe even a little agonizing here and there, especially, like, when Brandon's trying to lay down some hot one-liners on these folks. Like, you just need that beat. It almost feels like they didn't have the coverage. Maybe like scenes kind of blow by, especially at the beginning. It's just like pow, 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 pow. You got it, right?
What I think is something similar. Yeah, they had to get to the crowing pretty quick. Put somebody in that makeup to hide him kind of away. Because they start crowing like 16 minutes in.
They start crowing.
Yeah.
I don't think that we've covered this, but I think we have to bring it up just in case the audience is unaware. The star of this movie, Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, was accidentally killed during the filming of this movie. So that's what we're talking about here, in case you didn't know.
And it's kind of like the same situation was more recently with Alec Baldwin and the Rust thing, where the armorer of the production somehow got a real bullet in the chamber, so when the stunt guy shot at him, it wasn't a blank, he got. And
yeah.
Like, I don't know too much about the production, but once more, it does feel like this movie's missing something. And I feel like it definitely needs that room to grow, but they couldn't do anything.
For me, as the, 14 or however old I was version of me, that was plenty. I understood he loved this person, she was taken from him in a brutal way, and now he's going to fucking get supernatural powers and kick some ass. And then when he's not kicking ass, he's going to go fiddle with his guitar and get extra mad at it because he's unkillable, but he still can't get that stairway to heaven down.
No stairway. Denied.
Listen, he stole an electric guitar and not an amp. The sonic waves out of that thing was just out of pure will.
I just figured it out. Okay, so this is one of the more brooding movies that I've seen, like, in my life. Just a lot of just general brooding. Figured out why. He's sad because he really wants to get into that band that's in Queen of the Damned. He wants to play from that mausoleum.
I kind of love how these are sister movies now.
It absolutely is, yeah.
Your point of it being a sister movie is fucking perfect. Both of these movies are okay at best. Like, if you take the soundtracks away, they're okay movies. If you add that soundtrack, they're bangers.
I actually agree with that completely. Both of those movies, spoiler alert for my opinion on this, pretty mid. Soundtrack is A-okay.
Well, it's good to know that there's at least a soundtrack that you can sit down and enjoy.
And speaking of enjoying things, Eric Draven certainly isn't. What I've got here today is from Stone Brewing Company out of San Diego, California, I believe. This is their Enjoy By series. I always like to pick these up whenever I can. They're not on the shelves very long. This is Enjoy By 10/31/24. Would have been the anniversary of this young couple's wedding, so celebration of it, I guess. It's Halloween. But this is a 9.4% alcohol by volume hazy India Pale Ale, so this is a big boy. Very aromatic, lots of fruit. You got pineapple, you got mango, you got all of that normal stuff. Doesn't taste like a 9.4. This is very reserved, this is very balanced. This is actually pretty damn good. Now, I don't want to compare it to the heady topper that I had last time, even though it is the same style. This is a much bigger boy, and nothing really gets up to that level, but this is pretty damn good, honestly. It is. This is pretty damn good.
Well, you know what else is pretty damn good? Being a cop in the city, getting shit on every day, and finding out one of your murder cases is kind of walking around.
Yeah. Yep. A zombie or something? No, he's not a zombie. He's just walking.
You move, freak show, and you're dead. Well, I say I'm dead, and I move.
It's not even like a quip. He just took what the guy said and just inversed it. He just threw it right back at it.
That kind of brings me to something. Like I said, this was big during the 90s, especially among goth kids. My best friend in high school was one of those goth kids, and I heard so many of these one-liners come out of his mouth during the 4 years of high school. I didn't know they were from this until I watched this, but now I know so many of these lines. Thanks, George.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
So, this is the part where action is happening. Now, this is a revenge picture, so we have to get that vengeance one step at a time.
Sure.
So, we roll up on this one guy who was one of the fellas who killed our main protagonist, and he's a bit of a sharp fella, isn't he?
Oh. Yeah, this guy likes knife play.
So much so that Mr. Draven himself takes all of his knives and sticks them in his internal organs in alphabetical order.
Yeah, that's a line.
I thought that was a fun thing, just because, how would you know?
Yeah.
You know, just like, he just said that just to be, almost like he took it upon himself to tell his boss that it was kind of worse than it was. Like, of course, that man got, but like, come on.
Yeah. He just felt like being creative.
As one should, especially when you're getting revenge. This is revenge. So now he's murdered one guy who points him to Gideon's pawn shop. Gideon says, "Oh, you're looking for T-Bird and all his fucking party boys. They hang
Just
out
squeals
at X
immediately.
Club."
Right.
Oh yeah, he ain't got nothing in this. He ain't got nothing in this. He's like, "Dude, don't blow up my shop." He's like, "I'm gonna blow up your shop." It's like, "You son of a bitch!" And then he blows up his shop.
I really feel like this guy Gideon really got the short end of the stick. Like, he's not in the gang. He's just like, he gets money and goods from the gang. You know, he takes advantage when he can, but he takes advantage of everybody when he can. That's just, he's in the business. He comes to him for information. He gets that information. It's not Gideon's fault. He just has a shit mouth, like that he can't stop insulting people that are in front of him.
It's just his defense mechanism, don't worry. He's got it under control.
It's like a slug has slime. He has profanity that he just slings at everyone that's in front of him.
I think that's just why he's one of our favorite characters, because he's just constantly just like reaching into his pocket and just throwing it out there. It's just like, damn, man.
Even when faced with top dollar, the guy that he knows basically runs the town, burns the whole city down every devil's night. He does this, he knows this, he's still like, "Hey, fuck you, weirdo, and fuck you, incestuous sister. Y'all are freaks. Give me the fuck out of here."
Oh, he does say
Yeah.
that, doesn't? I just thought that was an insult. I didn't think he was being like for real about it.
No. He was just up front with them. He was like, nah, fuck it. I know you're gonna kill me anyway. Fuck you. You're cool. Fuck you.
To be fair, the sister's pretty cute, and she's only a half sister, so like, you know.
Well, like when he leaves that pawn shop, he yoinks his little electric guitar so he can be cool as fuck later on.
Hell yeah.
And did you guys like how he just kind of like didn't really do anything else for the rest of that particular day? He just kind of like meandered around until he just so happens bumps into his little kid that he was taking care of.
Wait, day? There's something that happens during the day in this movie? Because this, as far as I'm concerned, this happens across 2 nights that are connected by another night.
That's just Gotham for you, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's interjected with rainy days only, okay? Hence the song, It Can't Rain All the Time.
It can't
His
rain all the
#1
time.
smash hit at the local indie bar.
Yep. Did that go to number 1?
Well, like they had entire band shots, like professional photos, like promo shots, and they're just famous down the street.
I said we're a pretty big deal at the Empty Glass. Kid. But I'll tell you what. Here's what's neat. We get 0 daytime, always night, because Eric's, I guess, maybe a ghost. Also, he has somewhat semi-supernatural powers. Maybe he can, maybe he can't turn into a crow.
A raven.
But we get this fucking sweet 9 Inch Nails song playing while he runs across the rooftops to find Sarah, the little girl that they adopted. He wants to find her mother, who is hanging out with sleazebag rapist funboy. And man, oh man,
Right.
do they like banging heroin and bird watching?
Bird watching. They're birding.
No, Funboy, like he's a total scumbag, but he just looks like scumbag Tom Petty. And I just couldn't get past that, so they're trying to mac on each other and like, get out of here, kid. We're trying to screw. I'm just like, buddy, she's an American girl.
Yeah, but he won't back down.
Well, he's just running down a dream.
Oh.
Oh, you know, nobody has anything? Man, I feel like a real refugee.
Hold on. Let me get on my Spotify.
Yeah, that's okay. Between those two, their time is short, and you know what? Love is a long road.
It's always night, so there's no wildflowers here. I don't fucking know.
Stop! He's already dead.
You know what he was doing at the beginning? Out of that window?
Jacking it.
Oh.
Yeah, but the crow does walk up there and he does the whole like Steven Seagal just busting in the room like, hey, I know who you are. You're dead. You know, he just gives him no shot. Well, that's not true. He does get a couple actual shots on him. And then he learns that the crow's invincible. And he's like, oh man, I guess I'm just going to fall over dead.
Yeah, I guess I'll die. That is kind of whack though. Like, he dies, wakes up, he has superpowers. Like, he ends up being, like, thematically wise, identical to Batman, right? Batman's just rich. This guy has superpowers. That is way better.
I would lean more into what Eric said earlier with the Spawn idea. Like, he's back, he's getting vengeance, he's killing, he uses guns, you know, he's got invincibility, he's got powers that he's learning to use. Maybe he can, maybe he can't turn into a crow. Maybe he can twist your wrist and make morphine come out of your veins. We're not sure where this stops.
Yeah, you're right. We really do need more lore here. What's going on? I know this comes from like a comic, but who wants to read? Like, I need more in this movie. I need more lore in this movie.
That's a good point. Like, the powers that he has, which I guess is like strength and immortality, cool and all, but laser vision's kind of cool.
The regenerative, like, Wolverine stuff.
He needs a little bit more than invulnerability and an employee discount at Hot Topic.
Oh.
It was 25% back then. That's not nothing.
That's not nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's Hot Topic right there. It's not nothing.
Yeah. So he really just goes on a string of vengeance, just, you know, trying to off all these guys that got off inside his fiancée, right? I don't know how many of them actually got off inside there.
Well, I'm going to say at least 4, because, like, we're up to 2 already. He's got 2 left. So next is good old Pepper T, or whatever his name was.
The T-Bird.
Named after his vehicle, the Thunderbird.
There's somebody put, like, a blower on the hood. Like, it didn't even... Like, what is that about? It looked like the Pimp-mobile from Superfly, to be honest.
I was just about to say that.
Fucking, we got Priest running in for smokes and road beers.
Yeah.
Before we get to our real denouement of how this movie really ends, now that it's separated from all the discussion about its context within the popular culture of Gotham and what happened on the set, I need to say something.
All right.
I'm all ears.
Brandon Lee's performance in this movie is just okay. It's not great. It's not. I don't want to talk poorly upon the dead, but most people are dead at this point, so it seems okay. Brandon Lee isn't great. This was a Nepo hire.
I kind of lightly agree. Like, not only did the movie get better as it went along, but so did he. So, like, the first half is just kind of just, like, finding its footing. Like, once more, like, I don't know if they didn't have, like, enough connective tissue to bring out his character earlier, but by the end of it, he's firmly at least cool.
That 110%. As someone who's watched a lot of Brandon Lee movies, not because I was like, oh man, Brandon Lee, but I want you guys to know, if you look up his filmography, he's in a lot of what we would call maybe so bad they're good movies. You know what I mean?
What? Laser Mission's my favorite.
For real. Whenever they want him to be like a character, he's not the best. He's not very good at being not Brandon Lee. And the cool part about this is, by the time he's visiting Ernie Hudson in his house, and he's like, I just thought I'd use your front door. Yeah. These lines are delivered with so much, I don't want to say conviction, but just they come out so natural and real that you can believe them.
At that point, his character has achieved like a level of sincerity by that point. Like, his lines feel like he's a bit tortured inside and out, and this is all too overwhelming. You know, he just came there to crash, and it's really believable. Even though Zedamore's over there, pants off, hat on, I don't, whatever, it's his place, but...
What's the line that he spits out when he shows up at Ernie's house? It's like, you died, you got burned, you still have your hat on.
Got him!
It was cute. I like their exchanges when they finally get comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And it's also like cute in the meta that's fucking Ernie Hudson. He's a Ghostbuster. So whenever he finally meets a ghost man in his house and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm dead as fuck. He's like, yeah, I've already done this, so I get it. But like, it's weird.
Right.
He goes, it's also weird that you're still wearing your hat when you're off work. He's like, fuck, you got me there.
I really just like to wear it around the house.
Oh, wait, wasn't that an officer's hat? Because it's very alluded to that he had a higher rank before he got demoted because of some personal shit. Before that.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Maybe it was just him just kind of like being, trying to like feel like the old days for a minute or something. He just got busted.
Was that his old hat that like he was supposed to turn in, but like somehow it got lost? But,
Oh, you got my badge and my gun, but I'm keeping the hat.
The Stetson stays with me.
Think about this. Needful things. Whenever the guy's like, what do you want? He's like, dude, I just want my high school letterman jacket. He just wanted his fucking, captain's hat or whatever he had before he got demoted.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the kind of lore we need in this movie. We just need a little bit more.
You know who we haven't talked about enough is Sarah, and she's like the third biggest character in this movie. This is the little girl that I guess was like questionably estranged from her slut of a mother. Well, we don't have to say slut of a mother. She's a working woman, and she was being taken care of, I guess, by Eric Draven and his fiancée. I don't know what their relationship really was, but she is a big part of this movie and somehow even knows Ernie Hudson. I don't know how.
Isn't it just like a neighborhood thing? Because like when his higher ups come down, it's like, do all the street trash have names around here? And Ernie's just like, dude, they're people. I fucking have to know these people,
Yes.
This is supposed to be like a city, though, right? This is like grim and depressing. This is like Detroit in the year 2068. I know, not really, but it's like they make it seem like a pure, like fucking liberal hellscape.
Obama.
But it is like constantly on fire or like covered in grime. This is not a city that is thriving.
It is constantly on fire because every year, the day before Halloween, they just fucking start arsing around.
Nice.
See what you did there. That's good. That's
how we celebrate Devil's Night. And I love that once all the baddies get got, all of which are left with the signature trademark crow symbol.
It's a raven.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Once they get got, he's got one more to get, and that's Skank. And to get to Skank, he has to go and see Top Dollar. And this, to me, was such a good scene in the idea that he walks into this boardroom full of, clearly...
There's a room full of bad guys.
Yep, and they're sitting around the table, and he's like, I just want him. And he points at Skank. And he goes, well, how's that make you feel, Skank? And Skank says, I feel like a little fucking worm on a big fucking hook.
He repeated it, too. A little fucking worm on a big fucking hook.
And everybody looked at him like, yeah, that's about right. Peace, brother. Like you're toast, whatever.
That's a uniquely apt point of view.
Before we get to the end, I do want to bring up one thing. Like T-Bird, we just have to mention him once more because, like, the first guy, he got all stabified. The second guy got all drugified. But T-Bird got fucking melted in his car. And I was not expecting that crime scene.
That was brutal.
To be honest, that was fucked up. He looked like that Russian astronaut that didn't make it back. You know that picture.
For me, it was 100% reused again. Thank you, Chandler. In Fight Club, when he's like, they won't do the recall if it's cheaper to just pay for the deaths whenever they get melted to the seats.
Mm-hmm. But he gets straight up duct taped to this car. This is a brutal death. Like, I don't want to hang on it too awful long, but like, he is duct taped to this car. He throws a grenade in there. This isn't realistic whatsoever. He drives this car, which beautiful car, by the way, through some barrels and off a dock. Like, sure.
I was kind of half expecting Crow to be like, time for a long drive off a short pier. And then he just rides off into the sunset, explodes into like a million fireworks.
Yeah, it turns sideways as it goes off the dock for whatever reason, explodes midair. It's just one of those badass things. You see, Eric Draven back there throwing up the peace signs as he deuces out of there.
The last guy, he was going after the crackhead guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking around the corner at this insane thing that just happened. I could just see it in his eyes. He was half like, oh my fucking god, and half like, that was the coolest shit I have ever seen.
No doubt.
When are you going to watch a car's chassis blow off of its frame with your friend inside?
What do you mean it didn't have a motor? Well, hey, speaking of big bada boom, we're right at it. It's literally Crow versus the final boss.
Yeah, this is the boss fight. You know it was coming. This is the only way it could have ended. You've got all the Goonies out of the way. Not the Goonies, but like the goons. I'm not talking about like the Goonies.
His voice sells his entire character. His look, I don't know, it kind of seems like he should be in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, yeah, Sephiroth. Mm-hmm.
He's got some really fun lines that he delivers to Eric Draven as to who, he's kicking his ass because the bird, the quote-unquote pro.
It's a raven.
Okay, there it is. So the bird, the bird in question gets wounded. And as this wounded avian creature flops around on the ground, They realize that they can hurt.
You could even call it a corvid if you want. That leaves it kind of general. It's a corvid.
This Baltimore Raven is flying around.
Yes, in Detroit.
Well, shout out to Baltimore. It fucking sucks. I'm sorry.
So we got this final showdown where they find out if they injure the bird, they can hurt the man, and they start basically fucking him up. And he gets the bird to attack the sister, kill her. Poor Candyman gets got thanks to Ernie Hudson's intervention.
If there's a steady paycheck in it.
And we get this final showdown on top of a chapel. And not just any chapel, a very gothic cathedral-style chapel. And it's in a rainstorm with lightning.
Of course.
And we get some fucking cool lines because there's a sword fight, as one should have. And he's using a lightning rod as his sword, and Top Dollar is using a Highlander-esque katana.
This is just exactly the way like any generic Castlevania game would end. It's like, on top of a church, fighting, the big bad, and you've got these big swords, and there's lightning, and it's get the fuck out of here.
Well, you did say the soundtrack was pretty banging, so like, you know,
Yeah.
do 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 do, just super Castlevania.
Yes.
It is. Should have brought
What
my
is-
holy water though.
Oh,
It's OP.
that's what's happening at the end. He used his superpower and used the holy water, and it rained sideways. You know what I mean?
Oh,
right.
I didn't think about that.
Damn, he was one special way having that Bible fly around him and beat the shit out of him.
Ooh, yeah.
You couldn't really control it that well though, so yeah.
It's kind of like if you had a sibling growing up and they would swing their arms around and be like, "You'll only get hit if you run into me," and just walk towards it.
Man, I need to replay Symphony of the Night, huh?
That's a banger.
I mean, everybody does. By the way, if you're still listening, play Symphony of the Night. It's fantastic.
So good. Such a good game. One last esoteric thing that I need to bring up before we get to the very end. This cat, man, how was this cat surviving in this loft for a whole fucking year?
Maybe the cat was also killed, already done its vengeance story, so it keeps its invulnerability.
Ooh.
Is it a cat crow? Crow cat? Raven cat? Okay.
Meanwhile, on top of the cathedral.
Yeah, you just have two blokes up there swinging antennas at each other like they're fencing.
Yeah, Crow wins, gets his vengeance, da-da-da.
It's a little bit. It's not as unceremonious. Like the big baddie has the RoboCop CEO fall off the church. It's like, "Wah!" And instead of him just like being impaled, which is awful enough, but he's like impaled specifically in like this pattern on his chest, but also through his mouth, just so you know that he might be dead.
Yeah, oh yeah. Did you know that gargoyles that are not made to move water are actually just called grotesques? That's what he is now.
Oh, he certainly is. But unfortunately, the movie doesn't show a lot of it. He's just like, he's dead, and movie's over.
Eric literally crawls back in his grave, and it's game over.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
like, I'm tired now. Gotta cover up.
Yeah.
That's the end of
Then-
Billy Butcherton till next Halloween.
Yeah, I was gonna say, until next year, yo. It's kind of like Mr. Hanky, the Halloween poo.
Oh, no. No.
Dude, you're not wrong, because every fucking crow that came out after this is shit. For me, this one was always, and probably always will be, even for its faults, on one of my top tier lists, just because 14-year-old Brady fucking identified with it. I was angsty, I was lonely, I was dark, I was broody. It clicked for me. I fucking loved it. But it introduced an entire new vibe of rock and roll, you know what I mean? And I can't thank this movie enough for help shaping Little B's mind. But for all of its faults, I still give it a high five. Anything past the second one, and I'm not saying the second one's good, but anything past the second one is just deplorable and can't even be registered as a film.
Luckily, this is the first one. And I think it's good. It's a good time. It struggles a little bit because I feel like it needs a little bit more room to breathe, a little bit more lore. You know, maybe the plan was just kind of tell this story and dive into like a deeper chapter later on. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case because Brandon Lee passed away. I had a good time. It's a movie that definitely gets a little bit better as it goes along. Like the film and everybody in it gets more comfortable with each other. It just feels like it becomes more cohesive. The beginning's a little shoddy, but otherwise, I would recommend it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Eric 100%. This wasn't one of my core movies growing up. This was the first time that I've seen this movie. I don't know if I mentioned that, which might surprise a lot of people that I grew up with. I've never seen The Crow. I thought it was okay. I think Brandon Lee was okay. There's a lot of pretty cringy stuff in here. Overall, like, I get it, but it's just okay. That's it.
Well, there you have it. That was The Crow from 1994. If you have any strong feelings about the movie or the show, leave it in that comment section below.
Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Be sure to bash the bell icon. Really, hit all of the buttons that you want. We won't judge you, so you don't ever miss what we have brewing up next.
You can find us anywhere podcasts are available. So give us a listen, including YouTube, y'all. Give us a shot. Sometimes we're pretty funny. Other times we're like a raven/crow and we just don't know what to do about what we're doing.